Well, it's July 1st, 2025. Thanks so much for being willing to be recorded for a Voices of Service veteran interview. My name's Eliel Hinojosa. Can you tell us your name, sir?
I am Joel Patrick Humphries.
When and where were you born?
I was born in Fort Worth, Texas, November 27th, 1970.
And tell us, who are your parents and what were their occupations?
Joe Humphries, businessman, consultant, worked factories and other stuff like that. My mother, Mary Ellen Weiler Humphries, now Robinson, career educator, 40 years, retired as a principal in Texas.
Okay. And can you tell us what primary and secondary schools you attended?
I went to several because we moved. So primary schools, Mansfield Independent School District, there's several schools in there. I actually graduated from Graham High School in 1989. My junior and senior years I did there. Okay. And then I came here to Tarleton State University.
Okay, fantastic. Did you have any jobs before you entered the service?
I worked, odd jobs as a kid, mowing lawns and stuff like that, doing little roofing help, whatever I could. I worked for Taco Bueno, which was amazing. The difference is me, according to the training videos from the 80s. And then I worked at Dairy Queen for a little bit. I did some substitute teaching here and there, some odd jobs. I was an RA on campus in the Texas Army National Guard to make extra money while I was there.
Okay, so you were in the Army National Guard prior to your commissioning?
Right. I signed up November 2nd of 1988, so just before I turned 18, drilled until the end of high school, went to basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri as a combat engineer. Okay. And then did that most of the time while I was in college here. Okay, so let's talk about the early days of service. So when did you join the military? Or when were you commissioned? I was so joined the military, basic entry date, November 2nd, 1988. Okay. Combat engineer enlisted in Mineral Wells. Did that up through my junior year here, contracted with Army ROTC here, and continued on as a S&P cadet, simultaneous membership program cadet, until August, whenever I commissioned from Tarleton State University as a second lieutenant field artillery on active duty.
Okay. And can you talk about some of the training that you engaged in while you were participating in the Army ROTC program here at Tarleton? Well,
there was two real big jumps there. So freshman year, you're just learning how to college and how to be a cadet. I made a mistake and I majored in ROTC rather than majoring in what my major was supposed to be. So I had a little bit of a struggle with classwork and excelled at ROTC. The first year we had Colonel Gandy. Colonel Gandy, an ex-SF guy, very big into training. We repelled. We did big into Ranger Challenge, big into physical fitness, and several other things. At the end of that year, he was replaced by Mike Brown, another infantryman, different cat. Not real happy to be here, not real happy to be, this is final assignment in the Army. So there was a downturn in the attitude around here, I'm going to say that. But we did FTXs, we went to the field, either Brownwood, we went to De Leon to the Proctor Dam, and we go do land nav, things like that around the park. Lots of land nav, some in-class training, but we spent a lot of time outside. And some of the biggest deals were the camaraderie we built around PT, being the only people doing PT 5 days a week. Sure. We did it then. Waking up people on campus was fun because we'd run through in the women's dorm over here at Honeywell Annex. We'd run past that. We'd run by Bender Ferguson. The guys would throw things at us. The women would yell at us. It was better to be yelled at than have things thrown at you. But the sense of camaraderie that we built, we started off my freshman year with 54 people in our room. That was our class. We ended that year with 8 out of that freshman class because they just didn't want to be there. And then I and one other guy, John Leslie Davis, he was in the National Guard, retired as a colonel here a few years ago. We were the only two who went through first day to last day. Everybody else, we graduated a class of 13. The rest of them came in after that. Good people and everything, but just the sense that they didn't need you pervaded things. The sense that they would threaten you with cutting you went deep through that organization at the time. And that's what it was. That was the standard that was set by that organization. And I will say that they did put a lot of effort into getting us to the field to train. And I felt very well trained in what I needed to do to be an Army officer to start off with. But the foundation that they set in other things was not necessarily the best.
Can you talk about your commissioning and then your first duty assignment after commissioning?
Okay, so I commissioned in Wisdom Gym August 14th, 1993. I was actually commissioned where the tennis coach's office is now, which is kind of cool. Went from there. There's a break in service because you don't immediately go on active duty. So I did substitute teaching at the first of the school year back in Graham, Texas. Went on to active duty on November 2nd, 1993 to Fort Sill, Oklahoma as a field artillery officer. Did the field artillery officer basic course there for, it was about 6 months because of the Christmas holidays. And then my first duty station, originally I was pinpoint assigned to Babenhausen, Germany. I had taken some German. But my orders showed up and it said Korea on it. So I went to Korea as my first assignment. Left in late February, I think it was, I can't remember, of 94. And then shortly after that, got on a plane, a rotator over to Korea, and was assigned to 8th of the 8th Field Artillery. It was called Camp Stanley at the time. They moved posts later on. My first actual duty was to help run the battalion commander's farewell, which was interesting. But I got there, battalion commander asked what assignment I wanted. They had two open, one of a mechanized infantry company, where I'd be a fire support officer, or light infantry company, air assault with 506 infantry, the first of 506, which is Band of Brothers, all this other famous stuff now. They weren't as famous then. But I got tricked by the guy who had been there longer than me. He said, I'm going to go do the hard thing. And he was fat. And so me as a skinny guy, I walked in and said, I want to do a real rotation here. I want to go to the 506. And the battalion commander said, good. The other guy wants to go next. So that makes it easy. So he tricked me. I had a great time. I still, in my pocket, the first coin I ever got was a 506 infantry coin and bug. It sits there. I've carried it ever since I got there.
Wow. So
it was a great unit. Had a great time. It taught me my career was what I would make of it. And you didn't have to be so scared and serious all the time. You had to know your job. You had to be professional. Being professional means you show up at the right place, right time, ready to go, knowing everything you know with all your equipment. But beyond that, you could actually have fun. You could figure out stuff. So I spent a year in Korea with the 506 Infantry. I was offered the opportunity to go back to 8th, the 8th Field Artillery proper and work some other jobs. And I said no, because if I wasn't going to be a Kurahi, I didn't want to be in Korea. So do you want me to continue on?
Yeah, I think one of my follow-up questions here was, while you were there in essentially your first assignment, and then chosen one of the assignments that was open to you, right, when you got to Korea, who sticks out for you as a leader, right, in terms of like an example or a non-example, right, while you were on your young as a second lieutenant or first lieutenant?
Captain John C. Paglinite.
Okay.
Captain Pags, I got there. So my first night with the Kurahis, it was get your bags packed. We're going to the field tomorrow. You're going to need everything, kit out. And so I had to get all my stuff kitted out like they used with their SOPs. I spent that whole night doing that stuff. Bags packed, ready to go, in the vehicle, go. And we ended up immediately into company infantry assaults on multipurpose range complex out in, I forget what it was, so I can show you the map. But 14 dry runs on that immediately. Just kind of a shock to the system, but one of the best ways to get in there, because you're just doing your job. Right. You're not having to worry about politics, you're just doing your job. But that night, we had something going on. It was a night assault, and we did about the 18th time we'd done this, because we did 13 a day and 5 at night. And so one of them during the night, he said, cease firing. And so I called over the net. I said, you want the rounds to stop now? Yes. I said, cease loading. And so he yelled at me and said, I said cease firing. I don't want another round to hit. I'm like, you can't do that because bullets are in tubes. They have to be launched. So cease loading means no more rounds after that. We got 1 minute time of flight. And so he chewed my butt. And I said, it's a doctrinal language issue. And I stood my ground, did what I was supposed to do, did the right thing by the artillery. But the next day I walk up on him and a bunch of the captains standing around. And he goes, there he is right now. I told him cease fire. And he's telling them, regaling with the story about how he chewed my butt. Because he wanted to. And I saw them. I turned around and walked away. I didn't make a face, didn't do anything. Just walked away. And he came over and grabbed me later at the Katusa snack bar. That was a place where you can go buy ramen and Pepsis and whatever else. So I'm sitting there eating my stuff with people. He walks over and sits next to me and he goes, so cease loading, huh? I said, yes, sir. And he goes, okay, so I'm going to apologize to you. We were talking about stuff, and I decided to throw in a story about you, and then I thought about it, and I said, I probably owe that young man an apology. This is the first time I met him, and I chewed his butt. I don't really know the word. And so he says, I'm not ever going to apologize to you again, more than likely, but that was probably wrong. And it was like, we're good? I go, fine, good. And so throughout my time there, I became personally loyal to Captain John C. Paglianite. I learned a lot about what not to do from him because he was very emotional, very rash in certain times. But if he needed something done and it mattered, he grabbed me. And so I learned the difference between being useful and being valuable. There's non-useful, get rid of them.
Sure.
Useful is a very bad place to be because you can do all the stuff, but you're not going to be seen as excellent or seen as worth the time of doing something. And that really bore out because I got my first ever evaluation. And my first ever evaluation comes in, and it's a blah evaluation written by people who had never really seen me. And he said, well, I'm supposed to be in your rating chain. And he said, that's your evaluation? I showed it to him, and he goes, no. He goes, go get your vehicle, get your map. Where is your unit at? I said, they're in the field. He goes, where are they at? Here. Good, let's go. So we piled up. I drove my Humvee 15 clicks across Korea. And this man went there with me. We got out. He walks into the command tent. He goes, I'm here to see your battalion commander on his open door policy right effing now. And this major's there, and I knew the major because I'd seen him once. And he looks over at me, and he says, I was like, I don't know. And so Pags walks in and goes, slams that OER on the table. He said, you don't know a damn thing about what that man does. That is the best field artillery officer I've ever seen. He's done this and this. I rely on that man for everything. And this evaluation doesn't say anything of that. Your artillery captain does not know him, does not care to know him, and didn't write on him. Here's what I would write. And you need to change this evaluation. And that lieutenant colonel did. And I had never seen that before. I never expected that before. And I never saw it since. But that man did that because he saw me as valuable, and he was going to stand up for it. That man was in my wedding. He was one of my groomsmen. He showed up, and he took me on a bachelor party that was up and down what we called Victory Drive in Fort Benning. And we both decided after about the second time of this is what guys should do, that we really didn't want to do that. It was a little bit over the top for us. But we hung out, and, had Coke, smoked a cigar. But that shaped me for how I deal with other people. If they're your people, take care of your people.
Sure.
And I put every bit of effort in developing my people since then. And that goes all the way through 26 years of active duty. And where I had young captains and lieutenants in a joint unit who we would teach to be good quality officers and teach them how they were supposed to do. And I can relate a story at the very end of that where I had 2 Navy lieutenants that worked for me. That's a captain in the Army. And one of them, 3 years junior to the other one. The older one had deployed 3 times for what I will call soft operations.
Okay.
Various countries. had done a good job, but was very immature and self-centered, to the point where he got told he could not come back to a certain organization. But he did the work. He put in the time and did all this other stuff. So not bad, needs to mature. He's coming up for his evaluation for his 04 rank, but the Navy does all their evaluations at one time. The younger one, going out of his way to learn, going out of his way to do more, he built a plan that's a military deception plan that's still on the books, ready to go if necessary, so I can't talk about it. But it was something with a little bit of guidance, a little bit of nudging. He came up with a plan that now Indo-PACOM said, this is outstanding, and took it word for word and plugged it into their plan. It's been on the books for 8 years now, ready to go because it's still relevant because of the level of job that kid did. Now, they say that kid, he's a man, and now he's now the MILDEC chief for Cyber Command. So several years later, he's been promoted twice, but he's doing that job because he was so good at it.
Wow.
I helped shape that.
Wow.
But when I was asked, choose between these two and tell me why, I said the younger one. And why? The older one's got his time. I'm like, because if you want me to, you ask me who's better, he's better. He's better and more mature right now. He's got 3 more years to go before he hits this level. He's already more mature. He's already producing at the next layer plus. He's got a long-term career. He's going to flame out. I said, love him. He's done a great job. But you asked me to pick. That's why.
Value. Right.
The other thing you always do is you always go back, and if you pick, you talk to the one you didn't pick. He's done a good job, so I pulled that man in and said, look, I didn't choose you for this. He said, well, why? I said, because of this. He said, well, can you go back and tell him? I said, I could, but I'm not going to, because I told you to make my decision, but I'm going to owe you the courtesy of telling you this is the selection I made. So you can advocate for yourself, but that's the selection made and exactly the rationale for why. And you know this because I've talked to you before about this. Well, yes. So doesn't like it, but has to respect it.
Sure.
And that's all you want is that, I'm going to say as a man, I know it's cliche nowadays, but as an officer, be straight up with me. Tell me where my flaws are, tell me where I'm doing well, but then do your job and take care of me. I had a young female captain while I was at Army Special Operations Command, and she did not make major. I had one guy that didn't make major. We knew that was going to happen. She didn't make major. I'm like, what the hell? She's awesome. And so it turned out that somebody had, at the time, on captain evaluations, you could put a poison pill in there. And you didn't have to write any paperwork. You didn't have to do anything else. You just marked one block.
Okay.
One from it's called left justified. If this wasn't called left justified, it basically was a signal of don't promote this person.
I see.
And so they didn't promote her. And I looked at that and I go, so I called the guy. Yeah, I fired her. I'm like, you didn't fire her. You put a poison pill in there. She's been making $300,000 over the last few years because you didn't do your job. If she was bad, you needed to write the paperwork, submit the paperwork, fire her. You didn't do that. She's outstanding. I'm going to get her promoted. He's like, good luck. Well, there's a thing called what does it call it? It's not exception to policy. I just dropped the word. But basically, if there's something in your file, it's a reconsideration board.
Okay.
So you put a request for reconsideration because there's something in your file that shouldn't have been there. And there was just something in there. It didn't have any impact on anything, but it was in there, so we filed. And the thing about a promotion list, especially for majors, it'll be 1,000 deep. And so, but they'll only have selected 600. And there's no alternates. It's just you're not being selected, you're gone. Bye. You come back next year. But out of that 600 people, they're going to get fired, they're going to quit, they're going to die. There's always space. And so the only metric for that board was if there's something in your file that shouldn't have been there, they go back before the board. If you met the qualification for promotion, means you could not be selected because you weren't in the top but you still met the qualifications, then you're automatically promoted if there's a position there.
Right.
Within 3 months, we knew that she had been promoted, and she's been a battalion commander twice.
Wow.
She went to the Marine War College. She's amazing. That's how I pay that back.
Awesome.
And that's how I teach people to pay back. So, John C. Paglianite. Long answer to a very short question, but John C. Paglianite.
Talk to us about your. So you were a second lieutenant and a first lieutenant during your Korea.
No, I was only a second lieutenant. I didn't get
Okay.
promoted to first lieutenant until I got back to my next assignment, which is Fort Benning, Georgia.
And you mentioned that he was there as well.
He was in Georgia, up in Atlanta.
Okay.
So he was in recruiting at the time.
Okay.
So I saw him up there a couple of times. I didn't see him very much after that period of time.
And in that time, you got married when you came back stateside.
I got married, yes, whenever I went to Fort Benning.
Okay.
I met, actually, I got tired of going around and meeting people at bars and the mall and stuff like that. And so I used what I thought was a matchmaker for professional services. Mm-hmm. It turned out just to be basically a set of baseball cards, male and female. And they go, okay, who needs a date? This one. Cool. There you go. And so it was a round robin. She was the fourth or fifth person that they sent me. Mm-hmm. But she's nursing student, me, Army officer, that fit the profile. So
Sure.
met her, hit it off. Nice. Got married March 1st, 1997.
And the rest is history.
Still married.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What was your next duty station / job after Korea?
So Fort Benning, Georgia.
Okay.
I was originally assigned to Fort Rucker, Alabama. They closed Rucker. I said, what do you got available? And I chose, from 10 duty stations, I chose Fort Benning because I knew a bunch of people would be there from the infantry. Mm-hmm. But also, I'd been to Fort Lewis, and I wanted a girlfriend. Mm-hmm. So I wanted a nice Southern girl if I could find one. And so I wanted to go to Fort Benning.
Right.
So I went to Fort Benning to do that and be in the field artillery.
Okay.
So I was my first job was a Colt platoon leader, combat observation lasing team for a brigade, basically fire support, but weird. And then I did fire direction officer, platoon leader for a hot minute. Then I was task force fire support officer. Got married before I went to the task force, and then left there after 2 years? Yeah, 2 years, and went to the Armor Advanced course. I was the Field Artillery Community Selectee for the Armor Advanced course. So they put one different branch guy at another course so that you can basically teach them fire support or integrate the fire support for that school.
I see.
So they can all learn from each other. So we went to Fort Knox, Kentucky in, June, July of 97. So right after I got married. And we're there for 6 months.
And at some point, you're at the Captain's Career Course.
That's Captain's Career Course.
And so where's that located?
Fort Knox, Kentucky.
Fort Knox, Kentucky. Okay.
Yeah, Fort Knox, Kentucky. It was 6 months long. Then we went to what's like an old school that they have now integrated called the Combined Arms and Services Staff School, or CASCUB, at Fort Leavenworth. So everybody would go to their Captain's Career Course, and they'd come together at Fort Leavenworth, and then you'd have a staff school to teach you how to be a decent staff officer.
Okay.
You know, what to think of, how to plan, how to work with other people. It was a good blending thing for about 6 months. I didn't have much fun. I learned a lot, but I was what they called Captain Redo. Every class has a Captain Redo that the instructor just selects, and that guy's going to get a redo. I got a redo on something that was 4 seconds short of 8 minutes. The next one I was under 2 seconds short of 8 minutes. I had to redo it. And so the last thing I had that I did, I actually had an SF guy who had a plugger, which is the old GPS, so it has exact Greenwich Mean Time on it, and a stopwatch, and he had cards to hold up for me. It was a 18 to 21 minute briefing, and he held 18 minutes, and I still had like 5 slides, and I smiled at the guy, and I flipped over my book, and I said to summarize, and I didn't do like the last 4 slides. And the SF guy's like, oh my gosh, he's going to eat it right here. And the guy gave me a passing grade. And so I passed the class. I wasn't at the bottom of the class, but I passed the class, and the SF guy said, and I remember his name is Mike Martz. He's like, I have never seen somebody have this realization that he had been screwed around with twice for a sub a second, and that the only standard was time, not content. And then look me in the eye and smile. And he said, I was like, don't do it. Don't do it. And he did it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so freaking cool. So Mike Martz's name matters later on.
I didn't realize that you were talking about a presentation. I thought you were talking about physical requirements for a run or,
Just a physical,
or something like.
it's just a presentation.
Right. So they wanted you to be on the clock 100% of the.
And I learned, because I was a staff officer from 2000 all the way up till my retirement in 2019. Time does not matter. Less time is better. What are you supposed to do? What do they tell you to do? How are you planning to do it? And then when are you going to produce? What are you going to produce and when are you going to produce it? That's all any general cares about.
Right.
So 5 slides. And the rest of my career, so I went from that course, I got called by now General Dempsey, the former Chief of Staff of the Army for a hot minute, then Chairman. I was at Knox mowing my lawn. My wife came out. Cordless phone was kind of cool. And said, there's somebody called the 67th. I'm like, 67th what? She goes, I don't know, but he wants to talk to you about command. Look, hi, sir. This is Captain Humphries. Hey, Joel, I'd love you to come out and command in my regiment. And, yes, sir, I'd love to go there. No clue who he is. But you don't say no to command. And you're a brand new captain. I just pinned on. At Fort Knox, fun fact, I pinned on to the exact same spot physically on the earth in 2 separate buildings during 2 separate times between captain and major.
Interesting.
It's dumb. It's fun though.
Yeah.
But it's just stupid fun. But we, I didn't know it was 3rd ACR, didn't know it was Colorado. You just said yes. And so our next assignment was to Colorado Springs, 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment. I served as 2nd Squadron FSO through a fire support officer through a National Training Center rotation. General Dempsey was replaced by General Baggett, who he really, really wanted to make general, and he did not. But he told me I wasn't going to get the command I was going to get. Field Artillery said different, and so did then Brigadier General Dempsey had said, I recruited that young man for that position, you will honor it. So I got command. I had been a captain for exactly a year.
Wow.
And so right before, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I took of 98, I took command, and I had a whole lot of fun.
This is a company command?
Battery command.
Battery command.
So I had 168 guys, 9 of those were officers, and I ran it's akin to a pocket battalion of all of what you have to run, because you have all the log, all the maintenance, you have your own bridging, you have your own cooks, stuff that a regular artillery battery doesn't have.
Okay.
And I empowered my subordinates, and they pushed training and everything else. We ended up with the best battery 3 Corps. That didn't necessarily go on my evaluation, except it said I had the best battery 3 Corps. My squadron commander and that was Brigadier General May later on, and then Colonel Baggett both put that on their stuff. In fact, Colonel Baggett, of 10 bullets on his evaluation, 8 of them were me.
Wow.
But he told me, I don't have a 1 block to give you, a top block to give you, because I've given it to other people. But I need you guys like you to go to Bosnia with me and do this and this and this and this and this. I'm like, so I'm not going to be a battalion commander. That's what he just told me. Done a good job. I'm not going to give you this evaluation. I'm not going to help you out in any way, but I need you to just personally be on my personal staff in Bosnia. And I told him, I didn't technically give him the finger, but I told him, sir, what you're telling me is that I've got the best battery in 3 Corps, but because you and a staff couldn't do math and leave enough room for somebody who exceeded your initial expectations to go into that block, that my career is basically shunted in the field artillery. Well, no, I think you, I said, sir, come on. They're cutting artillery batteries, battalions, they're cutting this other stuff. If I don't have 2 1 blocks, I'm not getting there. So here's what I'm going to offer. My wife was like 7,000 months pregnant at the time, hypertension, all this other stuff. We're about to go to Bosnia for a peacekeeping mission. We're going to drive around. Okay, my guys are ready, and I wouldn't have been a commander through that entire time anyway. He wanted me to be a co-commander, which is not a thing. He just wanted me on his personal staff because he wanted to use me. Useful, not valuable.
Right.
So he said that I was going to be on his personal staff. I said, how about no? I've got a job with Space and Missile Defense Battle Lab. I'm going to be an FA-40, Space Operations Officer. It'll be a good time. I can be here and see my wife being born, and you can have a full-time commander who gets the last training reps before he goes, and he can do that because the guy can screw up the best at that. So why don't you do that, and give me a second 2-block, and then take care of somebody who exceeds your initial expectations with it. So that's how a captain tells a full colonel to go pound sand. And so I did that, and I did it on the spur of the moment because I knew what was happening. And so my career's over. I'm going to go to the battle lab. I'm going to probably be done. That's fine with me. It's February 2000. That's when I left command. Peacetime Army. We were the most trained for war group, and I had
Were you
not
a major
been
by this
rewarded.
time,
I
or
was
still a captain? Still a captain, okay.
Yes, mid-course captain, early mid-course captain.
Okay.
Yeah, I burned very early on everything. So I went back home. Well, I didn't get home yet. So I walked back. My boss met me. So come out this building, next building over. My boss meets me. He said, "You told the regimental commander to pound sand." I said, "I didn't say those words, but sir, you know it would be helpful since you used my stuff in your evaluation as well, that maybe you would have stuck up for me. Maybe you would have pulled a little bit for me, because I'm the only guy here who got, I didn't get the St. George's Medal. I was the first artillery guy to get the Supporters Medal. So you've not seen me as valuable, you've only seen me as useful." And he said, "Well, you know, there's ways these things work." I said, "Yes, sir, I know exactly how they work. I'm experienced with that. And this isn't it. So I'm going to go see my son being born and be here for my wife, and I'll figure out the rest of my career from there."
Yeah.
And I got back, and all the commanders are there in my office, opened up one of my ice cold Dr. Peppers for me, let me put my feet up on the desk and regale them with the story. So I went to Space Ops over across the Space and Missile Defense Battle Lab, technically headquartered out of Huntsville, Alabama. Was in Colorado Springs.
Okay.
I built some things with radio cards in computers to pull in satellite feeds to do targeting. And everything from the coding, cooling, software integration, ergonomics for the system, for how people use it and how it interfaces with them. Had a couple of contractors. We built that system fairly quickly. Planes hit buildings in September of 2001. I was in Colorado Springs. I just dropped my son off at Peterson Air Force Base, was heading into the battle lab, and was told, "Go back, get your kids, go home." Then they called us back. So my kid's in a military, sitting on my lap because I got no place to put him. My wife's a nurse, so she's at the hospital preparing.
Right.
And I'm sitting there in an information briefing with my kid. And they start yelling at me. I'm like, "What do you want me to do, duct tape him to the floor?" And Brad Bear said, "No, you're probably right. I got it." Because they gave us the code, and we read all the stuff. It was everybody's worked up. They don't know what to do.
Right.
And the people who had actually read the SOPs were us, and we were supposed to come in civilian clothes, not uniforms, all this other stuff, because we were in a civilian facility. After that, I spent the next 8 weeks at least going back and forth to DC. I was put on another project. It was to build a deployable space support capability. The current one was on 3 standard pallets that could go in the back of a C-17.
Okay.
Be offloaded for a team of 5. And I was supposed to build that cheaper, smaller, and faster. And so basically I was given some requirements for what they had to be able to do. I went to a bunch of military trade shows, talked to a bunch of military supporting contractors and businesses who had government contracts that did certain things we wanted, and got all the software for free. All the feeds were from national level Cheyenne Mountain stuff, and then basically put it together with the dumbest graphic user interface you could do, so that I could have deployed you to Iraq with this system, and you could have done everything you wanted. I mean, literally, we built it to so it'd pull in the satellite feeds for GPS overflight, other satellite overflights, so you'd be able to see where things were. I worked with NRO on a weekly basis. I was up at Hyatt Fair Lakes in room 506, Currahee, every week for 3 weeks, and then every other week for the next 4 months, to where I just had a standard room. I'd come in, but I gained 40 pounds in that time. So I would head up there. We do a pre-breakfast meeting at 5 a.m., breakfast meeting at 7:30, roll into the first meeting, real meeting at 9, lunch, eat. After lunch, coffee, cookies and sodas, dinner meeting, cigars and martinis or whatever, and in bed by 2, 3 a.m. and back at it.
Wow.
And the reason I did that is because that's how you met these people and that's how you dealt with them in D.C. I get it. It sounds like a bunch of meetings, but you have to meet people personally to get them. They're not military. You got to get them with you. So that's what we did.
It was the golf course, right?
It's the golf course, right. But it's all super classified. I mean, National Reconnaissance Office was classified until about 8 months before we did that. And basically what we did was we took existing stuff and made it available to the warfighter on the ground.
How did you get all that training to do that? Because
no training.
Right. We were talking about your major in college, and
I'm a major in business.
Right. So were there schools that you went to, or this was just on the job? We have a need.
No, we built the space support course. I built the space support course, and we just went and met people.
Wow.
And then we figured out. So the Army said, "This is what I need you to do. Okay, build this." Requirements. I need to build all these things. So something has to do that, and it needs to be smaller, cheaper, and multi-classified.
Okay.
And so go build it. It's just figuring it out. It's problem
so find the resources to be able to do the project.
Figure it out. So I got this. Cool. I'm gonna do. Here's what I think. And some people go, well, "What about this? What about that?" And you go, "Cool." And it's just putting ass to effort. Mm-hmm. That's really all it was. So go out and do. And I built a system that did all that stuff and was the fastest ever approved by NSA for access to a secret classified network under 30 days because I called the guy. And I said, I can build whatever architecture it matters. It won't matter unless I have the right stuff. The encryption's what matters, right? Yes. Nothing else really matters? Nope. What encryptors are you using? What data sets? This is the one I recommend. Do you have a contact? Yep. I called the contact right after I got off the phone with him and bought them. Mm-hmm. Why try to do anything else? Because if you don't know enough about the technical stuff, you find help. You go to the expert, the guy who's going to approve it, go to the gatekeeper, say, what is the key for your gate? Mm-hmm. And then you build everything out to meet the requirements, and all you're doing is just it's problem solving.
Right.
I don't have to have anything. And the thing is, budget doesn't matter to the government. People talk about salaries. They talk about all this. Budget doesn't matter. They have a requirement, they'll find the money. If they don't have the money, they won't do the thing. That's it. It's almost binary. But they figured out how to build all this stuff out and then built training for it at the same time, to where one of the things was a tactical unit cannot get satellite imagery because the birds are already tasked. But it's just a prioritization issue. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean that I can't get a picture, which is imagery, it's just a picture that's been stored somewhere. So we built with NRO a thing to show where all the pictures have been taken before. And so you're sitting down somewhere and go, I really want the latest imagery I can get of this place because we're going to go assault this airfield. Mm-hmm. We're sending 75th Rangers in there. And you go, well, I can't task a bird, but let's go to the library. Well, I got something I got 6 overpasses from the last 2 weeks. So I can't task now, but they've already done this, and I can piece together those images.
Sure.
And I've got you a picture within 2 weeks. Is that good enough? Well, it's better than I got.
So that part of that repository and all those systems were what you developed?
All we did was link the stuff that was there. Mm-hmm. Is there a library of this stuff? Yes. How do we link that and make it available? Well, I don't know. Well, this one cat in the corner goes, oh, yeah, I got this. I mean, a lot of this happened because you got to be willing to sack up, ruck up, mm-hmm. and go. So whenever I tell you about telling Colonel Baggett, well, you've ended my career, so I might as well do something. Might as well walk around here looking in the mirror and liking the guy, right? Mm-hmm. I just put that into effect. So I knew that Mr. Teets ran NRO. I couldn't find an office, and so the guy wouldn't call me back, but I'm standing in NRO. I'm one of the 100 guys in the Army who has a certain kind of clearance where I can just walk around. Mm-hmm. So I'm standing outside the office, and this whole group of people who I've seen their pictures in the hallway walks around, and I'm standing there. I just get out of the way a little bit. Mr. Teets walks out, and he goes, hey there, Captain Humphries. I've got my name tape on. What you doing here? I said, well, sir, I'm from the Army Space and Missile Defense Battle. I'm trying to integrate this stuff, and I'm trying to find this guy. And he goes, well, come with me. So I got the director of NRO walking Captain Schmedlap into an office. Hey, Joel's looking at this. What's this project? Well, I said, would you like me to explain? Because a guy had been telling me to go away. Would you like me to explain it? And he goes, yeah, sure. I said, cool. So here's what we're trying to do. He goes, that's a great idea. Can we do that? And looks at the guy, he goes, well, yes, sir, but we'll have to. He goes, cool. How much money and time do you need? That's how it gets done.
Wow.
Personal interactions make things happen.
Right.
And so long as you just do it, you know, the old Nike, just do it. People are used to planning and dithering and trying to ask Mother, may I? Just do it. And if you just do it, stuff happens. So that system I built, I could teach you how to run it in under 2 hours. And at the base layer, if you wanted to do GPS nav accuracy for an area for T-lambs, you go, this area, draw a circle on the map, it imports the circle. This GPS, here's the data. Well, I don't really want to build a briefing, so you hit a button, and all you had to do was upload the logos for the corners of the slides and the motto, and it would build the slides for you. You literally had to do nothing.
Wow.
Except exist. Now,
Sounds a little pre-AI. You know,
it was just fixed format.
Sure.
And once they did stuff, they learned how to tweak it. But it was fixed format, so you'd start off with a baseline. So if you're tired, you're hungry, whatever else, you push a button, it goes. At the time, we were running I want to say gigs, it's been a long time ago, but we were running 4 gigs up and 4 gigs down. The problem is you could download all you wanted to once the broadcast was there, but targeted broadcast with requests for information was the problem. The system we built that you and I could pull onto a plane with 2 transit cases had more bandwidth than an Army signal battalion at the time. We could run VTCs off our stuff for a division commander that the division commander couldn't get from the signal battalion because of their systems.
Wow.
So all commercial internet, all half donated, but we just did it. And because patriotism was high, people got paid later on, but they didn't get paid then. We rolled into Iraq that next September with 25 systems built for an order of magnitude less than the previous system was built for.
So this was
2001.
1, 2? Okay.
2001, 2, yeah. But did that. Built a couple of other cool things we're not going to talk about. But the last half of my career, I get to build stuff, and that was fun. I built stuff everywhere. So I went from Space and Missile Defense Command Battle Lab. They wanted to keep me, so I went to Future Combat System. You can look that up. Major failure, stupid, dumb, a bureaucracy running over the greatest of ideas, which you'd have to completely reshape the Army. We briefed what they asked us to do, and this big group of officers who were put together in the morgue, the basement of the old hospital at Fort Knox, had 60 days to put everything together. Went to Fort Monroe, Virginia, briefed General Abrams, son of Tank, and the associated branch chiefs. And we briefed, and they saw a squad, and the squad was 6, not 9. And the chief of infantry stood up and said, I will not stand and be the branch chief who signs off on the death of the infantry. No. The armor guy said, where's the tanks? You can't put a tank in the back of a C-130. You have to put an armored fighting vehicle that does. No. It was that quick. No tanks, no 9-man squads, done. And so at Future Combat System, from Fort Knox to Fort Monroe, we spent, I think it was 12 days, watching 2 people type up the answers that the Army wanted to hear, gave it to us, and told us that we had to present it. And none of the field grade officers would present it. We sat in the stands, watched this general present. We wouldn't touch it. And basically it failed because of that, and I tried to cram everything in the back of a C-130, and it wouldn't work. There was a lot of graft, a lot of greed, a lot of other stuff. It was a great idea that spawned a lot of good stuff, that had some really good people working on it, that was doomed to failure because the Army elite and the services would not build what they needed to build to do it. If you're going to do holistic, revolutionary transformation, you have to do it. Right. You can't rely on 1950s technology to haul around something in 2014. Sure.
When were you promoted to major, and when that happened, where were you? What were you working on?
So it was 2000. Let me do my math here. 2004, right? Yeah, 2004, promoted to major.
Okay.
Future combat system.
Right around that time. Okay.
And yeah, they had the Eisenhower building, the Eisenhower bust was put at a very specific spot in a building because he had spoken there. And then they demolished that building and rebuilt it and put the bust in the same spot. So I got promoted to the same spot at the same time, at the same place, but different buildings technically. It's kind of funny.
And then after that failed.
In Future Combat, I was the only guy there for 3 years. Everybody else was rotating in.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it was so bad. And I've got to tell you this one story because it's another one of my favorite things that I ever did. Halloween night, I've got 2 young boys. They want to go trick or treat, and we're sitting there on this briefing thing, and I'm like, Halloween's a big day. It's a big day for kids. And I said, look, we need to go. So we get done with this bunch of briefings for these guys, and we're sitting there, and this one lieutenant colonel who was TDY, their temporary duty, and he was in charge. He comes in, okay, guys, I'll see you in a minute. I said, I'm going to go trick or treating with my kid. I'll be back before you're done. Because every night we worked 6-7 nights a week, and this guy would come in at 1800, tell us to wait. He'd go in and call his wife and complain about his lot in life. An hour and a half later, come back out and ask what we had, and either give us work for 8 a.m. the next morning or release us. So I left and went trick or treating with my kids. And I came back, and I had trick or treated for the office, so I had bags hanging out stuff. And so I'm sitting there at my desk, and he walks out, and he looks over at the space operations officer who's there, 6-foot guy in a Winnie the Pooh outfit, handing out candy. And he looks over and he goes, yeah, I got nothing. And turns back, and the whole office was like, yeah! But I went back to the office in his Winnie the Pooh outfit. Nice. It was so much fun.
Nice.
Just, yeah.
Is the work that you did with space operations, is that still in the Army, or has that moved over to Space Force? Or
I'm going to answer yes.
Okay.
It's because some of that, they're still working out where the layers are between those two things. So Army Space Operations still does integration with Army units, but about 40% of that force is kicked over to the Space Corps. Space Corps generally runs stuff and provides policy, regulatory, and other type of information. And they have commanders, and they have other things, and they have a really bad song. They had an awesome choice, the Star Trek song. Just have somebody,
right.
Been great. Space Force song is awful. Put me on record, it's awful. But, so they haven't really figured that out yet. So the services haven't given up their roles.
Right.
Completely, because until Space Force can get in the dirt and do that for the Army or the Marine Corps or be on the ship with the Navy, nobody's going to trust them. So there's a little bit there. That system I built is still in effect. The team lead was a retired staff sergeant who we got her a job leading it. She retired out of that job, having gotten promoted, because that was 2002. That's over 20 years ago. She did a full career in a system that we built.
And really, like you said, so much of what you're doing is to benefit the warfighter on the ground.
That's all we care
dealing
about.
With what's in space in terms of communications.
Make their job better.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Make their job better. Find out what they need. Do your job better. And it's going to sound like a after-school special, right? In the artillery course and the staff course, they had this picture that I saw. And it had these 2 guys that were up to their knees in mud. They were sweaty, they were tired. And it said, staff officer, do your job well because other bear the brunt of your lack of professionalism. And so I took that to heart. Everything I do is for that person. People go, okay, sure thing, Dudley, do right. Sure thing, whatever. If I didn't ground myself, I'd lose myself.
Right.
So that's where I put it. So building the Space Support Element Toolset Lite was a big deal for us. We integrated all sorts of stuff. We had fun while we did it. Right. We had a guy who built something, he called it the Low Earth Orbit Position Reporting Device, Leopard. And so right before this briefing, I'm like, Chris, dude, it does more than reporting, it does targeting. And he goes, you're right. It does targeting. And so he briefed the Project Leotard in front of a boss who's just like, Project Leotard, that's funny. And Chris looks over at me and shoots a look and he goes, oh, I know what happened. That's what I loved about the Army. You could just mess with each other.
Right.
And somebody would go, "Yeah, you got me." And they'd be instantly mad, and then they'd start smiling, and they'd start belly laughing. I mean, it's so much fun.
Were there any AARs that you remember from guys on the ground who were using the technology that you had built successfully?
The best thing I can tell you is we built something that went in with the SF teams into Afghanistan and Iraq, specifically Afghanistan. It was a thing called Blue Force Tracker. And basically it said, "Here I am." That's all it did. It was dumb. But they had, and this is over 20 years ago, so I'm not going to tell you places or times or units, but this SF unit calls up to Colorado Springs and says, "Hey, you're the POC for this there, Captain. We need some help." I'm like, "What do you need help with?" He goes, "We can't find whatever the number was." I'm like, "Okay." So we went down to the ops center and I said, "Can you pull up Blue Force Tracker?" And they're like, "Yeah." And so we looked on there and we go, "Yeah, it's sitting about grid this." And he goes, "Okay, so that I am here, it is there, that's about," I said, "about a click and a half, kind of over a ridge." He goes, "Cool." And he said, "If I can't find it in an hour, I'm going to call you back if it's moved." I'm like, "Cool. Okay, no problem." And what happened was they took a picture and they sent something back to us, which was just dumb. A donkey in their horse train got spooked, and that's where they had the Blue Force Tracker, and it ran off, and they couldn't find it. And so instead of running all over the place trying to find the stupid donkey, they called us. And so we helped an SF team find their donkey that had their supplies on it. But it was just fun.
Right.
There's other things we've done that I've done where I've built stuff that I can't talk about that much. But that whole system, the Spaceport Development Toolset Lite, still exists today. It's been updated 500 times.
That is really interesting.
But it was me, an NCO, and a lieutenant colonel saying, "Here's how I get you money to do it." A lot of fun.
What was we're talking about this, and this is the early 2000s, mid 2000s. I mean, GPS was around, but I'm guessing that for consumers, end users like me, but I'm guessing that for the military, the level of use and the ability to access different kinds of satellites was way heightened compared to what the consumer could use, like if I was using a GPS for my bicycle or hiking or something like that,
It's the same thing. It's just the application and where the technology was in time.
Okay.
So we were using GPS in the Gulf War. It's the only way you can navigate big units through that big group of sand, and that's why we're so successful. Nobody's going to go across that desert because there's no way to coordinate units except very slowly. But you could with that. And so we had in Korea, I had a new thing called a plugger. It was this stupid brown box with buttons and numbers on it, and you flipped up the antenna, and you put your ComSec in there to get that. They used to have it was a classified. It wasn't classified, but it put skew into numbers. So instead of giving you sub 1 meter data, it would give you 5 meter, and then you got 50 meter data, then you got 11 meter data or 10 meter data. It would basically bounce around, so your numbers are always kind of moving. You don't get exact. Ours are locked in.
Right.
I went in '95. I took a bet from a guy to drive from the midpoint of Korea way up north, because I was at Greaves with the Kurahis, to not get past a certain grid line. So I had to stay north of a river and drive all the way back with the GPS and be there that day. And I looked at it and I go, "Okay, cool, we'll do it." And basically it was chicken cheesy ramen and a Pepsi at the K-bar. But I used that thing, and it's literally numbers going up, and I got a map, and your brain is the picture. You're using your brain. As numbers go up, you're going north. As certain numbers go down, you're going west. They go up, you're going east. And so you're just using your brain. And that was 6-8 hours going across the top of that. It's fun.
Wow.
I mean, like I said, stupid stuff. In Korea, we used to get our N+1 briefings, and so we have to go roll out. We know it's not real war. We're just rolling out to do something. I get dropped off at a crossroads in Moonsign. Right up the hill, there was a Dunkin' Donuts. We get Dunkin' Donuts. Running back down the hill, my guys would come pick me up and go to the N+1 meeting. And we're eating Dunkin' Donuts at the N+1 meeting. The colonel goes, "Where'd you get those?" And I said, "Would you like a donut, sir?" And he goes, "Yeah, love a donut." So where'd you get these? Sorry, you don't really want to know. He goes, but yeah, the way we were able to do that was we were to sync up between, we know GPS is here. I know how long your loop is. I know this other stuff. But we were able to use GPS because nobody else had it. So imagine the way that you can take units and move them to places at times when they don't have to worry about how do I get where I'm going. I know where I'm going. I mean, I still get in the car today and, okay, Google,
Yep.
that's where I want to go. Because Waze gets me around traffic, added features. But it's ubiquitous now.
It sure is.
But if you look at it when it's not and you're facing an adversary or anybody else who doesn't have it, it looks like magic. I mean, we rolled through Iraq with basically 2 divisions and smoked that entire place. We had to clean up with the 82nd and the 101st, but we smoked that whole place with 2 divisions.
Just because you knew where you were going.
A lot because we knew where we were going, but also the technology. I mean, there's the joke about how you got to fly over with a B-2, a B-1, and you see tanks and everything else. It goes, free healthcare. That's where your free healthcare is.
Yeah.
Not wrong.
Really interesting.
So, but most of that stuff is built on a military procurement cycle. I was bound by that because that's what they consider science, but I wasn't bound by that by time. I could just go do. So I built that. I left Fort Knox. I went to the 2 major schools. I went to Belvoir for what's called CGSC. Then I went to Joint Forces Staff College in Norfolk, then came back and I was assigned to STRATCOM in the 39. I was the first cyberspace operations officer for that. I wrote the order called Countering Adversary Use of the Internet. It was an XORD. And I wrote that for DOD to be able to do cyberspace attack. It was the first ever XORD that allows us to do it past a single issue, but it was a constant ongoing thing. It took 16 months to finish that. It was signed by the president. I was on the phone when he signed it. I was not in the room, but I was on the phone, which was kind of cool. And it is still in effect today. That was 2006. And the reason it is because all execute orders up to that time, here's the format. What's the start date? What's the sunset date? Well, I didn't put a sunset date on it. I left it out. And so it's in perpetuity. And it was against an adversary, it's not necessary. And if you close down the order, anybody can cancel the order. It just didn't automatically close.
Right.
So they could choose to close it. And we told them you could choose to close it. But that was after it had been signed.
Sure.
And nobody wants to close it. So it's available, it's done, it's useful. I will tell you that I know of no use against American citizens whatsoever. Or American persons. That's a different category you'll learn later on. But fun thing. Built the thing that allows you to do that and coordinated that over 16 months and business major from Tarleton State University.
Wow.
Which is fun to me. 247 GPA too. So
talk about your lieutenant colonel promotion and your job as a lieutenant colonel.
I left STRATCOM. U.S. STRATCOM in Omaha in late 2008. I was binding requested to both. I was actually told don't go get a binding request because everything I'd had been binding requests. And Army, so I've been pushed over to information operations, so space operations and information operations. And that's where I went to STRATCOM because I was the only space and IO guy in the Army. So I'm leaving STRATCOM, told not to go get a binding request. And I said, okay. And I got called and got yelled at by the guy at our assignment, said, you got 2 binding requests. Yeah, I told you not to go get one. I said, I didn't, I got 2. And he's mad, and he starts laughing. And I said, do you think that I would trust you to run my career? I don't trust anybody to run my career. I run my career. And I said, love you to death. You're doing a good job. You're doing the job you have to do, but no. I followed your instructions to the letter. And he laughed. He goes, okay, do you want to go to Cybercom with General Anderson? or Alexander, who's the Dernza who requested, or you want to go to SOCOM where Admiral Olson Biden requested you? I said, hang on just a second. Picked up the other line, called my wife, Tampa or Maryland? She goes, Tampa, stupid. And I said, I'm on SOCOM. Why SOCOM? Like, they don't make video games about cybercom.
Right.
And I would have been an NSA fellow. I was tracking all these really cool jobs because I had done what I had done. Well, if let's go to Tampa, let's go to SOCOM. And so I went to SOCOM. My mentor, Bo Merchant, got me down there. That's a long story. I've reeled you with enough long stories. Mm-hmm. But he passed away 3 months into my assignment there. And so learned a lot from John Leonard about taking over from a gap in service. But I was the command MILDEC officer, military deception officer for SOCOM. I'd been the deputy at STRATCOM. I had a civilian swap duties as the lead in the SEPing. Yeah. Because there were only two of us, but was a command MILDEC officer and chief of IO plans for SOCOM. So my front door job was IO plans. My behind the secondary and tertiary doors was military deception. And at the time, the job title was classified. So I couldn't tell people I was the MILDEC officer. I used to run global MILDEC out of SOCOM headquarters at 6 a.m. in the morning.
What did you tell people you were? What was your...
Chief of IO plans.
Okay.
So I did that. I deployed to Afghanistan. I had not deployed to that date. We're talking 2010. Mm-hmm. I had not deployed. Most people had 2-3 deployments. One of the reasons the IO guy was mad is because he wanted to send me to a brigade. So I go deploy with them, and it's a career ender. Mm-hmm. They were just getting bad valuations, and I'm not dumb. Mm-hmm. But at SOCOM, I volunteered to go to Iraq with STRATCOM. They said, no, I need you here. Went to SOCOM. They were told they had to deploy me. And so in February of 2010, I deployed to Afghanistan with Combined Forces Special Operations Component Command Afghanistan, which was the Army, or the U.S. White Soft Combined Operation. So not Delta, not the other things, but just the SF, SEALs doing the regular stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was the command MILDEC officer for a while. ISAF, there was a guy that was there in and out of country, okay. But I was the soft MILDEC guy, and so I ran the deception work for them for 6 months there.
Can you describe a little bit of what that is, deception work? What does that mean?
The baseline of military deception is to make an adversary decision maker make bad, slow, or no decision. Okay. Okay, there's ways you can talk about it, ways you can do. There's a movie called Operation Mincemeat that talks about a operation that was run to deceive the Germans, whether we were going to Sicily or into Greece or directly into Italy, mm-hmm. to make them split their forces. And it talks about all the levels of work that you have to do there. So they wrote a letter from a lover. They put an eyelash in the letter. They put tears on it. And all this stuff. And then when they got it back, because basically they used a dead body as a it's called the satchel ruse. You drop a satchel with a lot of stuff, windfall profit type stuff, and people look at it, they either trust it or they don't. So you got to make them trust it. So that's how they did it back in the day. Nowadays you can just do the same thing, but there's so many other countering observables out there that if I say it's going to rain on this day and you're like, it's not raining, mm-hmm. you're not going to do something. If I deceive you in certain other ways, there's 500,000 ways nowadays with all the information to be able to say that's not true. So my job was to make the ruse true enough to take an action. And that can be something where you're doing a whisper campaign over a period of time to get people to start thinking something. And it's not like today I'm going to do this and this is going to happen. It's weeks, months, years. Right. And so you build up this narrative in an area against an adversary decision maker in their language, speaking directly to them through multi-intermediaries so that they get the message and do what you want them to do. 90% of the time is you just don't want them to take an action. The other times you want them to move. And the way that we did it is we did some of what's called red on red. I cannot tell you any instances of that, where basically certain countries will get mad and it's the old gangland thing. So-and-so's a snitch, they shoot him, mm-hmm. right? That happens in life, okay? There's some of those things that you could set up, but it's not the intent of the operation. It happens sometimes, if you will. The intent of the operations is to get the bad guy to move out of where he is, go somewhere else, or not be aware of your operation, or take a bad decision. Sometimes, and that's for operational and strategic advantage for your forces.
Sure.
So what do I want to do? Why is what matters. So this is what I want to do for my force. This is what I'm doing to help them for this objective. Most of the time, we did stuff in a certain area to get people to move over here so we could do something over here.
Right.
And the idea was to not hurt people. Have them not show up so we could do something without hurting people. That was the whole Sun Tzu thing, or Sun Tzu thing, is the acme of warfare is to win without conflict, or win without fighting. That's what we tried to do most parts.
That's interesting. It reminds me of Midway and
It's exactly
AF, you know, the AF coding on redirecting, and it also reminds me of, oddly, baseball signals, you know, and that there's a marker for when to actually pay attention to what's being done, but everything else is a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah, football signals, everything else.
Sure.
Midway's thing was actually, so everybody says it was deception. It was intelligence. They put a message out, it's deceptive, to say that this is a problem, to be able to break the code so they could understand where the adversary was focused.
That's right. That's exactly
So
it.
it achieved that strategic operation,
That's right.
that objective. If you look at D-Day, I think it was called Fifth Army, Patton's army, they were to go straight across from Scotland to Pas-de-Calais. They wouldn't use Patton as a ruse. We dropped 70% of bombs on Pas-de-Calais in those areas, 30% down south. We used the Ruperts, those little parachute guys that would light off stuff, right? All to confuse and to get the decision maker to move their forces to support that area. They weren't going to put more forces in Pas-de-Calais and get them shot. They were going to put them back here so they could react. But where? How far north do we get them to run? Because the more north I can move, the more bridges I can cut to slow that group down. Same idea. Same exact idea. Just done in a digital age.
Sure.
And done out of conflict. You know, I'm not actually shooting at people, or my guys aren't shooting at people. But I have an authorization, so how do I make it better for my guys to achieve their objectives without getting shot at, and hopefully not having to create damage?
Yeah.
That's the idea. Did we do damage to stuff to do it? Yeah, I was in the Army. And did people get hurt sometimes? Yep, that's warfare. But the major end goal was always to get people not to do stupid, or to do stupid somewhere else where they weren't around our guys. If we could keep somebody from getting killed, that was the goal.
Really
People
interesting.
will talk about the times they did something and basically created a sack of dudes and they all got shot up, and yeah, it's true. But you did it for a purpose. You have to remove the enemy from the battlefield.
Right.
So I get it, they're all people with dreams and hopes and everything else. They introduced themselves to the battlefield, as did I, and you became a willing participant. And so you have to take large units off the battlefield. And that's sometimes what you do.
Wow. So as you're a lieutenant colonel coming up toward retirement, what was the decision like to not pursue full board colonel and then to retire? What was that like?
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay.
So I went from SOCOM, I got a by name request to Army Special Operations Command, where I developed their cyber capabilities and to do their job, and MILDEC.
Okay.
And then I got a by name request to go to, I was going to retire to teach MILDEC. And there was a problem with the Pentagon where that group was told, no, you're not going to do this. And so I stayed on for a year, brought my family up to Bragg with me because I was geobaching. And we went to the Pentagon. I was asked to go to the Pentagon by General Anderson, the 3 of the Army, wanted me up there to help run special programs and build some capabilities. And I said, okay. I'm thinking of retiring. If I'm not going to make 06, I'm not going to go up there. And I had the guy who was in charge of my functional area say, you're going to make 06. I would bet my house on it. You're number 1 or 2 or number 2. That's it. You're making it. General Anderson said, you're going to make 06. I'm going to pre-po you in a position. You're going to come here. So I told the family, I'm like, 3 years, we're done. We'll move back to Texas. And that's what was my son's dream, to be a Texas Ranger, so I had a timeline. And went up there, did my job, built a capability for the Army. that's still in existence today. Did some more cyber stuff. And I would tell you that when my promotion list came out, what they do in the promotion list for officers is they call you Friday or early Saturday if you didn't make the list.
Okay.
They call you Sunday if you made the list. So if you don't get a call those 2 days, you're in. And I never believed anything the Army told me until it was true. But Sunday, we were at a restaurant in Fairfax, Virginia. I had prime ribs delivered to me because I love prime rib on special occasions only. And I have my phone rings, and it's Carmine Chickalise, my boss. I pick up the phone and go, "Hey, Chick, how's it going?" He goes, and I go, "What are you talking about, And he said, "You're not on the list." I'm like, "Why didn't you call me Friday or Saturday?" I'm not using that language. I'm using very direct French language with my boss, who's a real 06. Okay? And I am dropping F-bombs everywhere here in a restaurant. And so, my wife goes, "Box this up, we're going." And he said, "You're not on any list. In fact, there's about 100 dudes who were supposed to get promoted that are on any list. They're not on the didn't promote or the promote list, but they're on the board list. We're trying to figure out what happened." Well, it turns out I had ankle problems that were constantly biting me. I'd be able to go, not able to go, PT and stuff. I still passed everything, set my PT tests up and everything else, but the Army at Fort Bragg, when I went there, said, "People are on recurring temporary profiles. We're going to put you on a permanent profile. It's not going to hurt your promotability. It hasn't in the past decade. Won't do anything to you, but we're going to put you on there so we can take care of the injury. You're still deployable, still everything else." Cool. The board rule that year was that anybody that had a permanent profile was not going to be selected for the board.
Okay.
So board rules means, when I talked about that group of people who you're in the board and you were above the line or below the line, this doesn't mean not promotable. It means you weren't selected.
Right.
I wasn't on the board. I had a straight top evaluation line. Moved my family up to DC for the purposes of making the rank and doing everything else, and didn't even get to compete. So you want to talk about the one major disappointment is I didn't get to compete. I think I would have been there, but I didn't even get to compete. They took it away.
Wow.
But the great thing about that is I got back home, grabbed the boys, and they're like, "What's going on?" I said, "Look, I didn't make the list." And my oldest son, Jake, goes, "Yes," and then feels instantly bad. I said, "Nope, you're 100% allowed to do that. My retirement goes on the desk tomorrow because I got to go temporary duty in San Antonio. That's going to suck because guys got promoted, guys didn't. That's going to suck. But my retirement's going on the desk." And I walked in, dumped my stuff on Carmine's desk, and said, "This is bullshit, but I'm done." No, stay. We want you to stay. You'll make it. "Nope, I'm done. Family comes first now." And I had asked for a release to go to back to Texas, reassigned to a different place. "No, you should tell a lieutenant colonel who didn't make the list." "No, I agree with that." But a guy named Mitchell Krabowski, the other name I'll give you, I listened to his plan for his after retirement stuff for like 4 hours one night. He called me up and said, "Why are you retiring?" I said, "Well, I didn't make the list." He goes, "You make the list next time." I said, "No, buddy, I'm done. I moved up here. The Army made some promises to me. The Army said no again. I got to take care of family. So I'm going back to Texas." He said, "Well, if I can get you to Texas in the Army, would you do it?" I said, "For the right job." And he said, "Well, I said, "El Paso ain't Texas. El Paso's New Mexico. I'm not going to do El Paso. I might as well be in Mississippi to be closer to this." I said, "What other jobs?" And he looked through and he goes, "You're the only guy in the Army who fits this guy at Joint Information Operations Warfare Center in San Antonio." I said, "You can get me to Jyowick." I said, "I will do the full 3 years." Because they have to fill, joint jobs you have to fill. You can only gap them for 2 years, then you got to fill for the full 3.
Okay.
It was my third joint assignment. And they said, he got me on the phone call, and he put me on a guy at Human Resources Command, the deputy knew him. He said, "I want to take care of a guy. On my way out, will you help me?" He goes, "Well, let's see." He goes, here's his number, here's everything else, pull up his file." He goes, "Yep. I see you asked for a deck. Oh, yeah, permanent profile. That's how I knew for sure that it was permanent profile, not anything else. And he goes, yeah, permanent profile got him. He'd make it next year more than likely. And he said, yeah, but he wants to move. Cool, where? And he goes, oh, yeah, he's the only guy that fits this. Cool, I'll have him on orders tomorrow. So they pulled my retirement paperwork, which was halfway through, and gave me orders to San Antonio. And I left, technically, the Pentagon exactly at 1 year, but I took 54 days of leave to get out of there. Did 3 years and a couple months so I could retire on November 1st of 2019. So Halloween's a big day. That was my last day in the military. November 1st, 1 day short of exactly 30 years.
Interesting, yeah. Do you remember that day? What was that day like for you?
It sucked. It sucked.
Why?
All I ever wanted to be was an Army officer. I came to Tarleton to be an Army officer. When I knew I was retiring, I tried to explain to my wife that I am at the peak of what I do. I crush it. I'm not quitting. I'm not doing anything else, but I'm not allowed to do it anymore. And so I started getting depressed. And it got so bad that while I was on terminal leave for 45 days, I was staying up till 4 a.m. And I was staying up 4 a.m. to make my days last longer. And I looked at myself one day and I'm like, you're pathetic. Let's go get a job. So I shaved off my homeless beard, cut my hair, put on one of the suits I bought from whatever it is, one of those mall suit shops, and I went out and got a job. And so I started exactly on November 1st. That's when a contractor can start as an officer. But if I had the first civilian ID still, you'd see that I was very unhappy. It was the worst day of my life. No longer an Army officer. And really the worst part of it is your entire life you get orders. And there's 7 pages of orders. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. Your retirement orders, that much. And it's a Mad Lib. Congratulations, LTC, Joel P. Humphries. A grateful nation thanks you for your 30 years, 11 months, and 28 days of faithful service. And it was a Mad Lib. And I was like, that's the most awful kick in the groin. Write something more than that. Make it a form letter. I don't care. But I had that. I just stared at it. And there were a bunch of us sitting there staring at it. I'm like, that sucks, you know? And you learned, again, that the Army doesn't need you. You're useful and you're valuable at certain times, but you're not, and you're useful, but until you're gone. And once you're gone, somebody will replace you. Nobody can replace you, but they'll do the job not to the level that the Army needs. And that's depressing. So I got a job as a contractor, did that for about 10 months, got a job as the 16th Air Force Mail Deck Officer, crushed that interview, got that job, and I proved myself that I still had it. That I wasn't kicked out because I was bad, but because it was time. Kicked ass. Did a lot of stuff that went on recently.
So you were a civilian contractor with the Air Force at that
Civilian
point?
Contractor, then I was a civilian, Air Force civilian.
Air Force civilian,
So
okay.
then did that through COVID. My youngest son's girlfriend ditched him. And we were free to leave. We had sold our house, made money on that. We're in a rental house waiting for that to happen. And my wife I had applied for the job here at Tarleton State University in February as the assistant commandant for academics, and it was listed to pay for $56 grand. And people were like, why would you work for $56 grand? I'm like, because it looked like fun. I got a retirement. Looked like fun. And my wife got the job as the high school nurse here. We drove up 3 hours for her to be able to interview, and we coached her on the way, and she crushed it. And we quit my job in June, went on an anniversary trip, got COVID, came home early, but we're left at our lake house up in Cisco, and like I told you earlier, I had nothing to do. And so, a little bit pathetic again, I would drive my wife down to her work and then hang around Stephenville in my business clothes hoping for the call for an interview for 2 months. About 3 times a week I would do that. And I finally got the call for the interview. I was the last interviewee. I was the least qualified. I didn't have a master's because that stopped when planes hit buildings. And I crushed the snot out of the interview and beat out people that were much more qualified than me, and got the job. And it takes a while to hire here, you know that. But Colonel Doug Simon here, the Dean of the College of Leadership and Military Studies and the Commandant of Cadets, he hired me. He held me off, and he held me off so that he could pay me what he thought that I deserved. Man went to bat for me because he saw I was valuable. About 8 months later, MJ McGregor left. She retired as the deputy commandant, and they promoted me directly in the position. He took care of me again. I'm going to say that because the man deserves it. And since October 18th of 2022, I've had the most fun possible. I have a purpose. I get to build things. We talked about the boots, the hats, the other stuff. But I get to make people who come here, I get to make their college and core time and ROTC time the best that anybody can make it, and take care of them. So long as they want to participate and do stuff, and they want to participate in the system, we will make it much better than any other place they can ever go. We're not A&M, we're not Norwich, not these other things. Don't care to be. We want to produce great officers who have great time in their careers and become great for their community and their country. If they don't want to be an officer, we help them find a job. We help them get where they want to get. Don't care what size you are, don't care what you are. You can't serve because you had bad vision, you had something else, let's help you out. You don't quit on me, I won't quit on you.
Right.
And I love my job here. I truly do.
Wow.
It's a great wrap up. The last job I'll ever have.
Right.
This job ends, I go to Lake House and pet feral cats, and I'm happy.
What do you want people to remember about your service?
I was a good teammate. Best thing you could be known for, I'll give you an example. I worked with certain organizations. One of them is called Delta. And I went to a retirement. And we had a guy who had a Silver Star, 2 Silver Stars with V devices. He's on TV. His name's Jeff. You'll see him every now and then. He does a lot of work for against child trafficking. Watched his retirement, and he got the thing that you get when you leave there successfully is you get a plaque. It's a wooden plaque, carved out, kind of looks like a high school project. It says thanks. That's what you get. That means you were a valued teammate. Played a lot of team sports. I was really, really good at times. Sometimes I wasn't the best player. Sometimes I was almost the worst player. Always a good teammate. That's what I want to be known as. I'd love to be known as a great mentor. I still mentor a lot of people. I want to be known, I'm known as one of the top 3 people from MilDec in this generation. Built schools, built other stuff, built programs, built capabilities. My community is very tiny, like 15 people. I'm easily in the top 3, and they tell me I'm in the top 3. Sometimes best at this, sometimes not as good as other things. That's great. It's a very tight-knit community. Had a lot of opportunities to go to certain places, certain special units that I turned down because I needed to be a dad. If I could be known as anything, it'd be a valuable teammate, because I want to put the word valuable back in there.
Right.
And that's what I want to be here.
Right.
So, valuable mentor or teammate. That's it. It's not going to be a statue of me. My name's not going to go in a building. Go with that. But if I can make other people's journey better, I'd do it. I tell the kids, if I could trade spots with you right now, I would do it. I would do it all over again. Because it's so much fun. It's scary, but it's fun. There's so much stuff you can do, and if you just go and do it and relax a little bit and have a good time, stress drives you, timelines drive you. But just do stuff. Because what are they going to, at the end of the day, what somebody is going to say? Nah. And that's the other thing you have to do. You're doing stuff, but don't have an ego behind it. Because somebody's going to say, no, I don't want to do that. Okay, so I'm doing another thing. I got my last job, I had 54 concepts of operation on the board. We executed 2. Somebody said, are you mad about the others? I'm like, no, I'm providing options for the decision maker. That's my job. And was top of my group.
Right.
So that's it.
Colonel Humphries, thanks so much for being willing to be interviewed. We appreciate it.
That's good.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.